Hey, this is Trevor Sternad from the Black Dahlia Murder here, and you're listening to the Everblack Podcast.
Hey, humans, Carl, this is Odorous from Guam.
Going to battle Fear Factory.
This is George Corshunter Fisher.
This is Gatsby Double Drop.
This is Wade from Our Last Enemy.
Mike Nick from Suicidal Tendencies.
He is at Wednesday 13.
This is Bruce Evans.
Rex from Kill Devil Hill.
This is
from Sepultura. You're listening to Everblack Podcast.
Alright, before we go into this episode, we just need to give a shout out to our show supporters, the brutal occult clothing brand Electric Witch, who have amazing apparel from shirts to hoodies to hats to beanies and more. Check out their full range at electricwitch.com.au and put in the code EverBlack for 20% off your order. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the Everblack Podcast through Spotify, iTunes, YouTube and Facebook, and check out all our articles at everblackmedia.com. Alright, on with the show. Well, Ivar, thank you for joining us on the show tonight, man. How's everything going in your world?
Pleasure being here, man. Yeah, I'm enjoying Bergen. It's autumn, one of my favorite times of the year. And yeah, Corona is still ravaging the cultural business, but we're starting to do a few gigs in November, like 200 capacity. Very much looking forward to that. Yeah.
That is really good, actually, man. We're doing shows here too, but it's nowhere near as much. We've only got like 70 cap. But man, I'd rather play shows than no shows. That's for sure. You know, hopefully we'll get to your point very, very soon. So, absolutely.
People just have to remember to not eat bats and don't lick each other in the face. I know it sounds impossible, but people should give it a try.
It's true. It's true. Well, of course, I'm having a beer with you tonight. Thank you. The new Enslaved album, Utgard, comes out on October 2nd through Nuclear Blast. And this is album number 15 for you guys, which is just insane in itself. That's a long journey, my friend. If anything, it's proven that you guys have grown album to album and just gotten stronger. I mean, this album is really, really good.
Thank you. Yeah, we think so too. And I think you can analyze it in all kinds of directions, but it boils down to this is the sound of five guys that really wants to pull in the same direction. And we're having one hell of a good time doing it together. It's as basic as that.
Mate, it sounds like it. It sounds like it. I think it's one of your best. I know it's like the thing to say, but I honestly, genuinely, like I've been spinning it at work in my headphones over the last week, and
oh, excellent.
Yeah, I've really absorbed it as much as I can, and I really love this album. It feels very epic and cinematic in a lot of ways. What's the concept that you guys were going for behind this one?
It would fit very well as a film, I think. It's
absolutely
the concept is Utgard, not the most well-known aspect of Norse mythology, which is such a popular phenomenon in mainstream culture these days. We've seen Asgard a lot. You know, that's where Thor, Odin, and the other gods live. The world of the gods. Outside of Asgard is the land of the unknown, you know, the land of the giants, which are the primeval first beings in Norse mythology. They're chaotic. The Christians like to portray them as some kind of parallel to demons, but that's not right at all, of course. Like most other things that Christianity is built upon, it's totally missing the mark. They are chaotic and unorganized in a sense, because they're originating from a time predating any sort of natural order. And that's what makes them powerful and dangerous for the gods. They are not possible to control, they're not possible to manipulate, but they do have a lot of magical abilities and weapons and so on. So in the mythology, you see lots of evidence, lots of stories about how the gods are sneaking their way into Utgard to achieve something. We were dealing with this particular thing from mythology on the last album, that it comes to a point where there's a lot of fear of the giants sort of storming Asgard, that there might be some wish from their side to do that, to sort of mess up the power balance, and that's when they build a giant wall around Asgard. And so that's sort of the ending point of the last album. And the beginning point of this one is looking, as you see on the cover, looking out from Asgard out towards Utgard. And that's where the album begins. It's a journey through Utgard, the unknown lands, and how that sort of a willful journey into something that's potentially dangerous, and yeah, it's reflections around that, you know, the will to sacrifice, to explore and expand, in a sense.
It's somewhere I don't feel like we've been, especially as you mentioned before, in, you know, popular culture at the moment. It's somewhere we haven't been before. We haven't been shown that part of that world, and I love how you guys have painted that picture and taken us on that journey, especially the actual title track, Utgard. Have I said that right? Australians butcher everything. I'm so sorry. Did I say that right? Utgard?
Yeah, that's
cool.
how we would say Utgard. The
Utgard.
U is varying a little bit away from, but you got it.
Well, the title track itself, I do love. It's just a spoken word sample that I don't understand it, but it paints that picture. What's that? Can you explain that sample, that spoken word?
Yeah, it was just something that I wanted to convey the whole sort of message through a simple poem on that one. So it talks about, it begins with man is born from darkness, and then I'm not going to quote it verbatim, but it's about, we're born from darkness, but we know, but we're trying to escape the fact. We don't want to be born out of darkness because we've lost our understanding of what it is. And by willfully going back into that darkness and letting yourself be born again, sort of out of it, you can then have a new look on the world. But now, knowing both darkness and light, you will see what the world is, how it truly is. And that's basically the poem. And then Grutle is reciting it in a pretty much a dead dialect, where his great grandfather, how he was speaking, his memories of that. Grutle is a bit of a language nerd, so he had remembered all of those specific pronunciations. It was really a special moment when he was reading that. We were just standing there after listening in the room next door and listening to it, and then like, what's happening now? It's awesome.
So powerful. I love it. Like, and it really helps tell that story and take you on that journey. Like, and the single man, Homebound Man, that song hits me right in the feels every time it comes on. It's super, super powerful. I mean, did you know it was going to be like that when you wrote it? You must have, man. Like, it's so strong.
I was feeling this is something special, definitely. But I never know, is this special? Is this like for me special? Or is this for people who's not me special also? Luckily, it intersects a lot of times. But I have to sort of keep that out of my head. That is very important, because once you, and it sounds, almost childish, but you have to pay attention to it all the time, that you don't let that kind of thinking into your head, because the minute you do, it's sort of, they spread like, ideas and thoughts spread like viruses within yourself also, not only in cultures and society. Once you started thinking like that, like, should I it's probably going to be liked by a certain demographic. You know, all the Germans in their denim vests are going to love this, and they represent a fantastic market portion. Let's try and do more of that. The minute you do that, you're fucked, because then it's too late almost. You know, it's because you're unconscious, and sort of your reflexes is going to start thinking that it's acceptable to make music in that sense. I'm not saying that music that is popular for millions and millions of people necessarily is bad. It very seldom is, but the minute it was, you have to think about the time it was made. Yes. It was made, even though it's Bruce Springsteen, or some of the stuff you hear on the radio is obviously not music. It's just crap. But it's and some people want crap, but popular stuff that I don't really understand myself, I can still hear it, and it's a point to it. You know, they probably had a tear in their eye while writing it, even though it makes me laugh. You can recognize that, and then it sells a lot. And it's the same for underground bands, big bands, as long as it's heartfelt.
Yes.
The rest is just up to, you know, fashion and stuff like that.
It's got a lot of heart, man. Like, it just, that chorus and the way it just, the changes, like, it's probably one of the best songs I've heard this year. Like, I've had it on repeat. Yeah, man, you guys have like nailed it. And there's so many other gems on this album too. Like, I don't want to even spoil it, but when this album comes out, like, it's really, really strong. And of course, I mean, you know, you worked with Jens Bogren again at Fascination Street shows. Now that dude to me is like one of the best in the world. Like, how do you find working with him? And you've done that a few times. You know, how's it? You know, going through that process with him now after you've got that rapport.
It's a lot of fun working with Jens. The more we get to know him, the cooler it is. You know, he's extremely professional. And he's exactly what is needed with the Slave. We are very sort of coming from a DIY background. We having our own studios. We record it ourselves. You know, the production team is from within the band and so on. So I think I'm really glad that we made that decision. We need to have one outside element. That we take all this stuff and the weird ideas that we have, because sometimes we just want to do weird stuff, and this allows us to do that. Like on the last album, we spent an entire day out in the field finding like old scrap metal and hitting it with various other scrap metal and wood and different textures, and recording that and trying to use that within the songs. If we were governing that process of mixing it too, I think stuff would become just, you know how it is. At some point, it crosses the boundary from experimental art to just good old climbing up your own asshole, which is not entertaining to listen to for people. So to have that outside, he's saying like, guys, this is just weird for the sake of weird. I'm just going to remove it. I'll give it 3 seconds to protest. And when he says that, there'll be like 3, 2, 1. Nobody says anything. We're like, you're probably right. Thank you. So he structures it and sort of pulls in the reins and makes all these various elements go together in one direction. And as we get to know him and he knows us, the work goes smoother, and then we get more time to get to know each other on a personal basis. And it turns out that the guy has an absolutely ridiculous sense of humor, which is very compatible with Enslaved.
It's important, but he's also a genius.
Very important.
And you guys are a genius.
Exactly.
Like, I think it's a really good working relationship there. That's for sure. And you got a new drummer. I mean, well, kind of new, technically. He's been with you guys for a while, but Iver, that's his name, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just to be sure we have the same name. Just I have an A and he has an E at the end of it. So even at rehearsal, it's all fucked up because like my dialect pronounces both names the same. So there's a lot of confusion there. When we go to the US, for instance, we just give up and we call him, we'd say like, just give him some kind of French name and make mine sound more Russian, and then it's fine. Yeah, he's been with us for the longest time, man. He's the sixth sixth Enslaved member he was until the moment that he became the fifth. Fantastic guy. He's a legend here in Bergen. His band is very good. A local one that's playing more of a desert rock kind of thing. He's played in a bunch of cover bands. He's a session drummer, and then he started working as a studio engineer and producer. And we started working with him there in 2010. But as early as 2006, he was doing stand-in work for Kato, the old drummer. When Kato had to go to the Atlantic to fish some kind of weird tuna that would appear there for 24 hours, making him missing a show, then Ivar would step in and play the show. So he was in the fold already. We had our list for when Kato said, I'm going to retire, guys. Then like, okay, our list is this big. It's just one name, Ivar. We said like, no pressure, Ivar, but either you join or we're going to put the band on ice.
No pressure at all.
And we're going to tell people that you're to blame for Enslaved dissolving after 28. So you have a think about it.
In 10, 9, well,
exactly.
Made up. Yeah. But, he's got vocal chops as well, that guy. Tell you.
We knew that we had, but we didn't want to pressure him. We wanted him to find his role on his own in the band. So he was a drummer, and we said, go ahead, man. There's vast spaces. Grutle loves to work. That's one of the things that he was missing while working with Herbrand. Herbrand, great singer, great guy, but he really preferred to work on his own with sort of his vocals. So they would just have a conversation saying, like, I'm going to do on this part, you do on that. And then he worked, and Herbrand would even record it in his own studio, and then Grutle would go to Ivar. So once Ivar came in the band, Grutle finally had like his other half that they could work out the vocals together. And it's amazing just for us other guys watching them, like how these fantastic singers, how they have like there's absolutely no ego involved. It's all about getting the best vocals. They don't even consider for a minute, does this mean like I'm going to be in the spotlight for that song? I want to sing on that song. It's just, they'll be saying like, you should sing this as often as saying I should sing this. And sometimes they even go like, Håkon should sing this, because now we have 3 guys. So it's a bit of we could even start a Viking barbershop band at some point.
That's a good idea. I don't think that's been done. Side project.
I think it'll get a shot pretty quickly, but it will be fun for a few seconds.
Well, my beard is nowhere near as powerful. So, yeah, I know. My beard's real sad. But, it'll get there one day. But, of course, I mean, you've been doing some live streaming gigs this year too, which has been pretty damn successful for you guys. How's that been getting used to that? Has that been, because I could imagine it being pretty strange to begin with.
Yeah, it was really strange for 5 minutes in the first show that we did on April 1st. And then this sort of calm, it was almost a metaphysical experience. I would say that everybody had this feeling around the same time and in the same place in the first song, going from sort of utter alienness to sort of a calm and feeling like, hey, this is fucking awesome. We don't know how many people is watching it. We found out later there was a bunch of people watching it, but got that feeling of we are able to send good quality pictures, excellent sound, and people are watching it and they're reacting to it. So it doesn't really matter if they're not here. It would be cooler if they were there, but the upside was also that we're reaching all of these people in various places at the same time, which also added a bit of an element to it. And the feedback that we got in the aftermath has just been amazing. People started now with the second stream, the Below the Lights one. People started sending in photos of like how they watched the gig. We got a video on the Facebook page of a bunch of guys barbecuing, I guess, in the US, because it's like in the morning there with a big old television screen in the garden, a big stereo, and they're all like half semi-drunk, stumbling around, watching this, headbanging a bit.
That's so
And
good.
then you have these other, like the Germans with their perfectly set up hi-fis. You can see that the guy's spending time finding the stereo spot. It's all kinds of things. People drunk with their tables full of bottles, and other places would be like a guy with a teacup. So it's been really a fantastic way to connect even deeper. Ironically, I think we've reached our fans and our listeners even deeper this year.
That's incredible. Hey, you know what it reminds me of? I know it's a bit weird, but you know in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, like right at
I know the
end,
film, yeah.
where right at the end and they play that show, there's like the Battle of the Bands, and then it's televised everywhere around the world, and it cuts to different scenes as like people in England, and kind of reminds me of that.
Exactly.
I'm just on a bit of a Bill and Ted kick at the moment. I don't know.
Maybe because Mastodon is doing part of the next soundtrack.
That's true. The movie is good. The new one is good. I highly recommend it. So
I only like the Bill and Ted demo, of course, being an underground guy.
Yeah. Well, of course, this was. I've lost my track. Where was I? I had all my notes here. It's pretty late here, but of course, I mean, you and Grula have been doing this since you guys were like 13, and it's such an incredible journey that you guys have been on. Do you remember what the first songs were like that you wrote together?
Yeah, we play actually the two first songs that were written for Enslaved. We still have play quite a lot. One of them, Alpha the Odin, is sort of a song that I think we include in 90% of our live sets. So the past is alive, man.
Because you know what it's like where, I don't know, when you're first starting out playing music, the first few songs, don't necessarily make it. But it's interesting to me that the songs that you guys wrote to begin with are still going strong. Yeah,
it's because, we like them. And of course they have what you can't even call them imperfections. It's done with the framework that was then, that's how we were thinking back at the time, or not thinking rather. And I was using that as an inspiration today too. It was a big inspiration for writing this album, to try and find back to that sort of instinctive, not find a way back, because I'm still trying to write music like that, but really focusing on the enthusiasm of the project, of the band, of just being able to do that and sort of lock the world out and not having thoughts about compositorial or musical theoretical this and that. Just like, turning yourself and your experience as a music listener into a measuring tool for the music that you're riffing, you're making, and sort of like, how does this make me feel, and how is this song gonna be the end? What kind of atmosphere can we build here? And that's all that matters.
That feel.
Exactly.
That connection, man. Absolutely. And you guys do it so well. And talking about before, we mentioned about how the new album especially is very cinematic. You guys write stuff that reminds me of soundtracks. Have you guys been hit up to work on music for film and TV and stuff like that?
Not yet. Not yet. It's a crazy market, I know, for sure. I have a little bit of insight into it, as I work also with management for other artists. And it's a race, man. So I think there's a few bands like Sigur Rós from Iceland, stuff like that end up as, or Vardruna for that, because of the Vikings series. But there's so many people working just with that for a band to try and get into that would be next to impossible. So, but we're still waiting for David Lynch to pick up the phones and say like, hey guys, my next big 10 movie adventure is going to be all Enslaved soundtracks.
I'd be so down for that. That's a good call. It'd be different. A good call.
I really like, maybe they could do Uncle Buck with John Candy. like do a remake of the soundtrack and put Enslaved on all of it. That'd be great.
That would turn it, man. That would make it so dark.
Exactly.
You know that bit where he's got the axe and he's intimidating that dude?
That'd be great.
Fucking brutal. Absolutely. Well, one thing I was going to ask you guys about was, the Norse mythology and the culture seems to be really recognized everywhere in the mainstream media right now. You've, especially over the last 10 years, you like Vikings, and you've got the Marvel Thor movies and bands like yourselves and Amon Amarth and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on it being the interpretations of that culture and stuff? Do you think it's being done correctly?
It depends on what you mean with correctly, because one thing is historically correct, right? And that's not necessarily that important, because it's entertainment and all that stuff. So it doesn't have to be like in Vikings. Let's use Vikings as an example. My very good friend Einar from Vardruna has made the soundtrack, so I've discussed quite a bit with him. It doesn't really matter if they get the places right, because for their story they want the guy to move along the coast, right? So maybe a scene would be better off if he's coming in with the ship, and in real life it happened in a part of the country where there's no coastline. So, and then people get aggravated about that. That doesn't matter, I think. But what does bother me is like this constant sort of twisting of who they were, in a sense, their nature, because that has a lot to do with the philosophy and the way that they're portrayed as these sort of like, yes, it was violent times, but they were portrayed a lot like bums, Yeah. They look like goths who has been like on MDMA for 14 days in a muddy site. It's like they look like crap. And then like the actual story with the Vikings, like they were so vain, man. It was insane.
Yeah.
They were dying their what do you call it? The fabrics. So flashy colors was a big thing. Black would be something you wore when you were on your way to murder someone. So I guess if they met a bunch of metal people, they would get quite concerned, I think. So they would wear all these flashy colors, braidings of hair and beard, jewelry, sort of a crossover between, I would say, they would look like a crossover between power metal people and hip hoppers or something. Big necklaces and all that stuff. And that was significant for the culture. They had a very big emphasis on hygiene and so on. That was pretty early on. And I think it sort of, I think it's great that the ideas are being spread, and it gives people a choice to get interested and read about it. And maybe, they pick up some of the ideas, which I think that's the good thing about it. I don't want to go back to the Viking Age. No fucking way, man. Can you just imagine the amount of toothache those people would have had? Oh. There's no dentists. Yeah. It's like, no matter, they go berserk because all their teeth are fucking hurting. So I wouldn't go that way, but I would love to take some of those ideas and the way that they regarded nature, yes, society, each other, honor, and last but not least, like a society where there was actually other values than money that would count. Just sounds fantastic. So I would like to bring those ideas into the now with all the good stuff we have now. And then it annoys me that the mainstream culture, that they just decide on how they want to use it as a prop, sort of, and that's sort of when they do downplay their humanity in a sense and just portray them as sort of these dirty festival goers. They sort of then they take away sort of the potential. People don't want to think that they had actual philosophical value, when they can't even stay clean.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. Absolutely. Like they were just savages. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And there's a lot more to it. That's why I thought I'd ask you your opinion on that, because it's something that's been coming up. of late between people that I know. But dude, that's appreciate you going into that. What's next for Enslaved? Of course, you mentioned about the 200 cap gig, but you got plans with this album and more streaming, more cool shit.
We're doing one more stream on October 1st, which is going to be like a hybrid, half with live music and then also interaction behind the scenes, blah blah blah. And then, we got a bunch of stuff lined up for next year, but like everybody else, we have plan A, we have plan B. And that if it doesn't open, then we're gonna rock the ether, if you can say that, or the fiber optic lines, I guess. Play more shows online. If we're allowed to play them live, we'll do that. But one thing's for certain, we will keep playing.
And just dig a hole all the way down here to Australia and come play some shows.
Exactly. I think we left it open from the last time in 2018, so we just have to
do it.
Check that it's still
yeah,
working.
Man.
Well,
I'll tell you what, you follow that tunnel down. I'll leave some of these tinnies, some beers, just
perfect.
A little trap. So
Thank you.
You can escape, and then you can come down, and you have to play.
We're ready.
Awesome, man. Well, of course, the new Enslaved album, Utgard, comes out on October 2nd through Nuclear Blast. You and the boys stay safe over there, and all the best with the rest of the year. And thank you for taking the time, dude.
Likewise, my friend. Thank you so much for the interview. Nice seeing you. Take care, man.
Been. Take care, bro.
Stay away from the Fosters.
Yeah, I like. That's exactly right.